Chapter 4. We Get Wise with Age. We get wise with age. That's what they say. Although I constantly hear a reference to they, I'm not exactly sure who they are. I have a mental picture of very old men around a circle, sprouting their wisdom and advice with young faces sitting in awe and wonder at the wisdom of these ancients. This image is immediately destroyed when one of the elders coughs and either accidentally breaks wind, or worse, pees a little in his pants, or sits there with a confused look on his face, wondering, what the hell was I going to say? Or, is it time for my pill? Wisdom comes with experience. In my case, it comes from experience gained through pain, followed by a lengthy healing process. Take, for instance, my period of wanting to be a great rodeo bull and or bareback rider. This was a period when I had first gotten out of the military and was still under the delusion that I was invulnerable and immortal. As a youngster, I rode everything from goats to elephants and had successfully lived through them all without too much injury. I rode the RCA circuit around Central and West Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming, and was fairly successful, not picking up many first places, but finishing in the money often enough to ride in enough events to afford a new truck and the necessary gas to compete. The experience was gained from a show in Amarillo where I drew a huge bull mixed between a Brahma and a Charolais. Now, one of the things I forgot to mention is that I chewed Red Man tobacco and dipped Copenhagen at the same time. Nasty habit. This particular night, I was really excited for the ride. Reflexes were at optimum, and I felt no hesitation in climbing onto this behemoth. Most everyone understands that a bull ride is only 8 seconds long to keep from getting disqualified. But you need points from the bull and your performance during these 8 seconds. The good part of this experience is that I covered the bull and ended up winning second place. The bad part is, when it was time to dismount this mound of meat, the rosin from the rigging glued itself to my glove, making it very difficult to dismount, as I was literally tied to a huge animal that was so infuriated by me being on his back and raking his shoulders with fixed rowels on my spurs that he continued to buck, shake, and jump. It seems bulls don't stop bucking when the buzzer goes off. While concentrating on unwelding the rigging from my glove, which still had my hand trapped in it, I forgot to keep my spurs firmly embedded in the bull's sides and lost what little control I had of the situation. At this time, I became a flailing rag doll, being tossed and jerked in all directions at once. About this time, my body was thrown forward and luckily landed between this monster's horns as opposed to directly on one of them. Still firmly attached at the wrist, the bull was so infuriated that I had suddenly blocked his vision that he rammed a gate in the arena, squishing me between the gate and his skull. Thankfully, his horns hit just right of the gate so that the impact only squished that part of my midsection that was beyond the horns. Still excruciating, but not squished in half. At the moment of the squishing, I lost another part of my concentration and swallowed my chaw and my dip. Involuntarily, of course. If you've ever swallowed chewing tobacco or dip, you are well aware of the instant nausea and your body's reaction to rid itself of the nasty substance. So that's what I did. So there I was, bouncing around in circles, death grip on the bull's left horn with my right arm, vomiting. Vomiting is still a much cleaner word than vomiting. Vomiting everything I had eaten for the last 2 months, it seemed, still attached to the huge infuriated mountain of chili meat and really looking for some relief. Everyone who has ever been to a rodeo knows there are clowns present during the bull riding to help the riders in the event they become unwillingly attached to animals and to draw the animal away from the rider once he dismounts. The clowns were present this day, too. Their heroic attempts to get me unattached from the bull had been fruitless. They even braved the steady stream of vomit spraying around the bull and me. Finally, one of the clowns popped open a butterfly knife about a foot long and took a swipe at the rigging along the bull's side. I came loose immediately. Now, My gizzard and rib cage were injured, my legs were not. I personally am not afraid of anything. My legs, however, are terrified of everything and will take over a situation in a split second, propelling me away from any danger at an exaggerated speed and distance. There's an old West Texas saying that he run plumb off. I'm not sure about the origin, but it was applicable here. My legs propelled me about 708 miles, 50 yards, down the arena with the bull hot on my trail, recognizing me as the cause of his irritation. I ran and jumped on one of the gates, propelling myself and my legs out of danger, which still wanted to run after landing on the other side of that gate. If not for the valiant cowboys catching me on the safe side of the gate, my legs might be running even now. Afterthought. My rigging was cut neatly in half by the clown's machete, but the bull was not even scratched by the knife blade. This is where the wisdom comes in. I ended up breaking several ribs from the squishing, and after a visit to the country doctor and getting wrapped like a mummy, I quit rodeoing, chewing tobacco, and dipping snuff all at the same time. This startling revelation happened all at once, prompted by several weeks of sipping air due to the broken ribs and instant revulsion when I tried to use the smokeless tobacco. Wisdom is imparted initially by your parents. For some of us, the rest, their parents are dumb as a box of rocks, too. We see them more and more. We are taught at a young age to keep our hands away from open fires, like a stove. Don't drink the furniture polish. Phenament is not chocolate. Monitor the look on your mother's face before giving her bad news or expressing a newly learned curse word. Measure the distance between you and your parent if you have not gained the wisdom from the latter. If you get a whipping at school, you will get a worse whipping when you get home, etc. As we grow older and have children, we gain wisdom from dealing with them. We assume, and everyone knows what happens when we assume something, that our children do not have the knowledge or common sense to calculate things like energy, kinetic forces, and prevent an injury from the same. My son was about 7 years old when I got him his first shotgun. It was a 410 gauge, and I did not cut the stock down, as I figured he'd grow into it and could place the gun under his armpit to shoot it without too much kick. He quickly excelled at this form of shooting and actually became pretty good at compensating for the offset method of shooting. He would bag his share of the West Texas rockets we call Dove and the occasional skillet shot of quail under a bush. As with most kids, he was not satisfied with shooting his own gun, but pestered me constantly about letting him shoot my 12 gauge, which is a much bigger shotgun with a kick like a mule. Like any parent, well, some parents, I decided the only way to get him to stop asking, was to let him experience the severe jolting from the bigger shotgun, and that should shut him up. I took the 12 gauge and put some birdshot shell into it. A birdshot shotgun shell is much less powerful than a turkey or duck high-power shell with less kick. Still a powerful shell, just not enough to knock him down and drag him and the shotgun across the desert. I figured my son needed a lesson, not an injury. I put a plastic bottle about 15 yards from us as a target. I positioned myself directly behind him in case the kick from the shotgun actually knocked him down. That way I could catch him or the shotgun if it went flying. "Are you ready?" I asked him. His reply of, "You bet, let's do this," satisfied my question of whether he really wanted to shoot this oversized gun. I chambered the shell, made sure the gun was on safe, and handed it to him. He dutifully positioned the rear stock under his armpit and held the forestock in his left hand. He situated himself around like a golfer getting ready to hit his drive, glanced behind him to make sure of my position, leaned back, and pushed the gun butt against my thigh, pushed the safety off button, and pulled the trigger. The sudden and unexpected kick of the shotgun against my thigh muscle knocked me down immediately and was fairly painful. I'm pretty sure I increased his vocabulary about this time. I looked up at him and yelled, "What the hell did you do that for?" His reply, "Well, I didn't want it to hurt me. There you go. More wisdom was gained that day. Never stand behind the kid while he is shooting. Never take this effing kid hunting again. Stop on the way home for some Ben Gay. This kid is way smarter than I thought. This kid cares little for my welfare, etc., etc. These were my thoughts as I limped back toward the truck. Pure wisdom. Wisdom comes attached to things like common sense, something we are seeing less and less of these days. The following are examples of common sense and wisdom. Common sense may tell you not to drink a whole bottle of cough syrup. Wisdom comes from doing it anyway and feeling relieved when the dragons and giant spiders stop hanging out in the kitchen. Common sense may tell you not to give your teenage daughter a company credit card. Wisdom comes from receiving the credit card bill and discovering that you now owe an amount equivalent to 1/3 of the national debt. Common sense tells you that more is not better when it comes to taking laxatives. Wisdom comes from riding the porcelain bus for 3 days. Common sense tells you do not open the bottle of beer with your teeth. Wisdom comes from the dental bill for a root canal and tooth cap so you don't give a whole new meaning to the words toothbrush. There are a billion examples of common sense, and you can see what an important role common sense plays in wisdom. More people should listen to it. It's one of God's gifts to mankind, or humankind. Unfortunately, it is an elective response and can easily be pushed aside, according to how much alcohol is involved. Part of wisdom comes from doing what your heart tells you. And it is sometimes so hard to close your mouth and put the mouth and brain filter into gear. When your little girl scrapes her knee, your first reaction may be to tell her, "Get up! I've had worse than that on my eye." Your wisdom filter should kick in and take her on your lap and kiss the boo-boo, telling her what a terrible wound it is and that it'll be all right with lots of hugs involved. When your little girl has a boy come over to the house and he has so many piercings that he looks like he fell down a flight of stairs with an open tackle box, your first reaction is to close the door in his face. Your wisdom filter should kick in and invite him into your home with a smile and a nice to meet ya. My wisdom filter failed at this several times. I spoke to them with a growl and continued to clean my gun. I always showed lots of teeth, like I might bite. When your wife asks you, "What do you want to do for our anniversary?" your first reaction may be to ask her, "When is it?" Your wisdom filter should kick in and tell her, "Let's go to a nice restaurant and maybe get you a mani-pedicure and a massage at the spa." Then you hurry to find out the date of your anniversary in private. Don't forget important dates. Wives expect you to remember dates that are important to them. Claiming ignorance is not a defense. Experience will teach you this wisdom, so learn from it. The following tidbits of advice were probably plagiarized from someone, but I don't know who. They make such good sense now that I am on the downhill slide of life. Advice from a wise old man. Your fences need to be horse high, pig tight, and bull strong. Keep skunks and bankers at a distance. Life is simpler when you plow around the stump. A bumblebee is considerably faster than a John Deere tractor. Words that soak into your ears are whispered, not yelled. Meanness don't just happen overnight. Forgive your enemies. It messes up their heads. Do not corner something that you know is meaner than you. It don't take a very big person to carry a grudge. You cannot unsay a cruel word. Every path has a few puddles. When you wallow with pigs, expect to get dirty. The best sermons are lived, not preached. Most of the stuff people worry about ain't never gonna happen anyway. Remember that silence is sometimes the best answer. Live a good, honorable life. Then, when you get older and think back, you'll enjoy it a second time. Don't interfere with something that ain't bothering you none. Timing has a lot to do with the outcome of a rain dance. If you find yourself in a hole, the first thing to do is stop digging. Sometimes you get, and sometimes you get got. The biggest troublemaker you'll probably ever have to deal with watches you from the mirror every morning. Always drink upstream from the herd. Good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that comes from bad judgment. Letting the cat out of the bag is a whole lot easier than putting it back in. If you get to thinking you're a person of some influence, try ordering somebody else's dog around. Don't pick a fight with an old man. If he is too old to fight, he'll just kill you. Most times, it comes down to common sense. Most of us have gained wisdom from the results of life's experiences and learned from them. Some have taken a couple of tries to verify that, yes, this is bad, don't do this again. Crap, that hurts. There are many, many more life lessons to be learned, adding to the wisdom as we grow. I get wiser every day.